So, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me this lunchtime, and we're going to have a fast, furious, fun and highly practical 60 minutes together where we look at the whole subject of problem solving made easy. So let's just give you a little bit of background just about Go.Mad thinking, just in case we are brand new to you. You'll see here that our purpose is to improve your world through better thinking. And what we love to do is to help people have light bulb moments, okay? Light bulb moments are when you get a brand new idea, a breakthrough in thinking. It could be a moment of clarity, or it could just be a realization about something. So today we're very much focused on starting with a problem as opposed to starting with a goal. We've been around for 25 years. In fact, this year is our 25th business anniversary, and we're celebrating by doing lots of things on the theme of 25. And one of those things is we're giving away 25 great prizes. So the more you participate in today's session, the more chance you have of winning a fabulous prize. So just in case you don't know, by the way, I should say that Go.Mad, M.A.D, stands for Go Make a Difference. It's a rallying call for change, for improvement. It is not about staying the same. So we've worked around the world in over 40 countries now. And what I've been doing over the last 8 months is distilling down all the best practices that have been proven to transform results and enable change to come up with the top 25. And today I'm going to be sharing between 8 to 10 of those with you as well. So let's just have a little look about some of the things we do. Here's some of our books, by the way. So I've got our 6 main books here. And what I've done is I've gone through these and for today's session, distilled out some really practical things to do with problem solving and making it easy. So let's just do a little check about your level of knowledge and experience in the Go.Mad methodology. I'm just going to share a poll with you. And what this will do is it will enable me just to pitch my examples at the right level and do a little bit more explaining if I need to. So let's just have a look at who we've got on. I'll share this with you in a second. And what I normally do is, by the way, I have 2 screens here. In front of me here, I have the poll and any questions that are asked me. So please do ask questions on my right-hand screen. If you see me looking across, that's where the chat is. So let's see, we've got quite a lot of people today that have not got any Go.Mad experience at all. And that's absolutely fine. I normally wait until about 80% of people have voted. I'm at 72% at the moment. I'll just wait for a few more and then I'll end the poll. Okay, so let's end that poll. I'll share the results so you can see. We've got exactly a third have got no experience at all. Welcome back if you've attended a Go.Mad webinar. Great. Okay, we'll come back to that, and I'm just going to ask you another question in just a moment, but let me share with you what we're going to be covering today. So today we're really going to be focused on some background research findings, some really practical models and frameworks, just for really focusing on personal and team productivity. And we're going to assess 50 common factors. We did some research last year and early this year about what is it that's most impacting team performance. I'll share that with you, do some assessments. The 8 to 10 best practices out of the 25, I've mentioned those already. And then we're really going to look at what could you do with just 1% of your time at work if you focused it in a different way. And I'll introduce to you to a TREK, that's a transforming results enabling change challenge that we're doing there. Questions and answers. Assisting me today, I have Jade, who's my right-hand person. She's working from home today, operating all the controls. She'll be posting to you in the chat box. If you've got questions for me at any stage, please enter them in the Q&A, and that will come up in my screen. And I promise you that we'll answer these as we go through the session or at the end. If we get too many, as we sometimes do, either myself or one of the team will get back to you with a personal reply within a day or so. So let's just have another look at a poll. And this is about your current role. So what is your current role? And if you could just put that in, that tells me again where to pitch my examples today. So we've got a lot of functional leaders and team leaders. Let me just, I'll share this with you now. Okay, so we have a few exec leaders, a lot of functional team leaders. Yeah, well over 70% their projects. Great. Okay, so thank you very much. That's very helpful for me. So let's get rid of that. Let us get straight into this then. So my job as Managing Director of M.A.D Thinking, as well as working with clients at the most senior level and designing large-scale programs, I coordinate our research activities. And as I mentioned to you, we decided to do a piece of research last year and early this year to identify the top 50 things that most impacts team performance. So what I'm going to invite you to do is have a read down this and then just write in your top 3 numbers into the chat box. And remember, the more you participate, the more you've got chance of winning a fabulous prize, prizes at the end of this session. So which of these are you being impacted by at the moment? Your team, okay? And let's see then if there's a trend or a pattern. So unachievable goals. I ran this session last week, and I think I can remember what the top 2 there. Thank you, Janet, for starting us off. Number 10 says Janet, letting go of unhelpful habits and team. 41, 48, and 28 says Katie. Let's have a look at those. Feeling undervalued, sense of unfairness, and number 28, poor communication. Harriet, number 3, conflicting priorities. Another 44, frustration, lack of clarity, says Ramona. Team morale, poor working practices. Oh, they're coming thick and fast now. 33, too much firefighting. Another 33, 22, 20, 39 and 33. 33 is the most popular today. That is winning by a country mile. Number 48, sense of unfairness, unachievable goals, lack of clarity coming through. Okay, thank you very much for that. We will come back to these and I will share with you how we can tackle all of these things by using 3 or more of those 25 best practices. Now, let me share with you a little story. I have here a can of hindering thought remover. Wouldn't it be great if we could just, get rid of any problems just by giving it a little spray like that, and they would disappear? Actually, this is actually lemon air freshener. I should say this, and I'm regretting doing that now because I'm breathing in the lemon air freshener. This was actually produced by a client of ours who produces cleaning products. And on the back, we wrote a set of fun instructions here. I don't know if you can see those. Removes uncertainty, blasts problems, zaps negativity, dispels limiting belief, solution focused. Unfortunately, this doesn't work. But what I do want to give you today is some very quick and fast acting key principles and techniques that you can zap away those problems and hindering thoughts. So here we go. Research part 1. When we think inside our heads, these thoughts that we have influence our actions and our behaviors. And if we're working in teams, it impacts the behavior of those teams. Those actions and behaviors that teams take cause the results. Now, if we're not getting the results that we want, we do some more thinking. So I just want you to really get familiar with the thinking, action, results cycle, okay? Now, if we're going to therefore influence our thinking or the thinking of individuals within our teams, we're going to break this down into 4 areas, okay? And from our research, this is what's called a thinking effectiveness model here. We identified that when people think inside their heads, they either think in words, which is the questions and the statements, or they think in pictures, which is their memories or the future that they're imagining. So a little exercise to do here, just grab a pen and a paper, okay, and just write down statements, questions, memories, and imagined future. And with something in your mind that is currently affecting you or bothering you, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and I'm just going to invite you to put a tick in either the helpful column or the hindering column. If you've got a bit of both, helpful and hindering thoughts going through your mind, just perhaps put it in the middle here. So notice as you think about this thing that bothers you, a problem, okay? And by the way, don't make it something trivial, but don't make it, I want to save the world. Make it a decent sized problem that's impacting you. Just notice what you're saying in statement format about either yourself, others, or the situation. And just identify, is that a helpful statement, or is it a hindering statement, or is it a bit of both? Just put that in the middle. Secondly, just notice inside your head questions that you're currently asking yourself about this issue or problem. Is that question really a helpful question that's going to cause you to move forward, or is it more of a hindering question that is perhaps hindering your progress? Or maybe there's various questions and they're a bit of both. Then let's move on to memories. As you think about this thing that bothers you, just notice whether there's any memories associated with it and whether or not those memories are helpful or more hindering, or perhaps a bit of both. And finally, as you think about this thing that bothers you, just notice whether or not you're imagining anything in the future, and whether that is a helpful thing you're imagining, or whether it's a hindering thought about the future, or maybe a bit of both. So hopefully you've analysed this down now, and maybe you've got 1, 2, 3, or 4 things that are hindering you, okay? But if you're bothered by something, it's common sense that at least one thing is going to be hindering. So you now have the choice. You have the choice, if you choose to say, well, what could possibly be a bit more helpful than the things I put in the hindering? Maybe I can ask myself a better question, imagine something differently, remember something differently, okay? Or just change what I'm saying in statement format. And the reason that I'm emphasizing this is to get you to be consciously aware of the thoughts that go through your head, because then you can choose to change them. Now, if you're impacting a team, they might be sharing their thoughts out loud, or they might be keeping them in their head. But surely it's our job as line managers, functional project managers, executive leaders, to say, if I observe a person with hindering thoughts going through their head, I've got a role, if I want to make a difference, to choose to influence that hindering thought to a more helpful thought. So if you've got any questions about this as well, by the way, just please put the questions down to me in the questions, not the chat, just the questions, okay? And I will do my best to answer them. So let me just see what we're doing next. Here we go. This is a guy called Paul. Paul Hilton works for a client of ours and had undergone some Go.M.A.D training. He'd got a pack of Go.M.A.D thinking cards, and this was his favorite card, the King of Hearts. And we use these cards in coaching and thinking exercises to put better quality questions in people's hands so that they can ask themselves those questions and come up with answers. Now, The King of Hearts says, who else? Paul's story was this, and he wrote this to me in an email. And he said he'd been having to drive his wife 4 hours from up north down to Cambridge to go to a hospital where she required brain surgery. And as he drove there, obviously, he was imagining what was going to happen and, not looking forward to things. But when he got there was no bed available. No bed available. So he was thinking to himself, what could I do? How could I find something? And then he hit upon the right question. The right question for the right person himself at the right time is one of the best practices that we've identified over the last 25 years. And it was by asking the question, who else? He answered a different question. And then other names started coming into his mind. And the short answer to this story is that he called one of those people, they found his bed, his wife was operated on, and she's absolutely fine. So the right question at the right time to the right person could even be a lifesaver. So let's look very practically at how you could turn a hindering thought, a hindering statement into a helpful question. This is one of my favorites. All the diamonds cards, all the red cards are about opening the mind to possibilities. And the Jack of Diamonds, this is one of my favorite, really practical exercise. Write a problem down in the form of a statement. So let me give you a common one. I have not got enough time to do X, whatever it is. For myself, I write a lot of books. It might be if I'm saying to myself, I've not got enough time to write my next book. If I keep repeating that over and over, that is going to hinder my progress, isn't it? So instead, underneath, I will write a question. And I will start it with either the words, what could I, how could I, or who could I possibly involve? So my question might be, what could I possibly do to free up more time to write my book? How could I possibly write my book within the given time constraints? Who could I possibly involve to help me write my book? Get the question sorted and then write 20 answers underneath. We call this the 20 answer technique. Answer that question as fast as you possibly can in 20 different ways. And I guarantee you that two things will happen. Firstly, the brain will start remembering all the easy answers, things you've probably thought of before, the recalled memories. But then when you get beyond number 10, beyond number 12, number 15, new thoughts start to come into your mind. And I guarantee you there'll be at least one thing between number 10 and number 20 that is a bit of a breakthrough in your thinking. So this is one of the best tools that we've got. We teach it with kids as well, so they can become little problem-solving ninjas, right? Can you imagine if you taught this to your kids or relatives, kids that have got them, all right? What do we do when we've got a problem? We turn it into a question. How many times do we answer it? 20. Let's go for it, okay? So really practical. That's probably my number one problem-solving tip. Made easy. Turn the problem statement into a question. Okay, so 1% thinking time. I mentioned that earlier, didn't I? This is another best practice. If you work 40 hours a week, and I realize you might work more, you might work less, but 1% of 40 hours is 24 minutes. Now, if you set aside 24 minutes, it doesn't have to be all in one go. You could actually do this exercise 3 or 4 times. This only takes 6, 7, or 8 minutes to do. So each week you could be tackling 3 to 4 problems. Now, imagine if your team were doing that and each person was spending quality thinking time focused on the right question at the right time. You know what? We'd start to get a lot of problems solved, wouldn't we? But what if we could also use that technique before meetings? Think about your agendas in meetings. You go to the written down. I'm guessing, only because I've seen hundreds of them in hundreds of organizations, that actually they're mainly statements. And there are relatively few, if any, questions on meeting agendas. But what if we could phrase that question in advance to cause people to think possibilities, and they all entered the meeting with 20 answers to a shared problem. That would be different, wouldn't it? Okay, let's move on. If there's any questions, and you know questions are great, please ask them to me. Let's move on to look at the next framework. This is the framework for probably which I'm best well known. And when I wrote the book, The Art of Making a Difference, in 1998, 1999, this was based on those 7 key principles, personal effectiveness book. Then that became very popular. So I wrote the book, Go Mad About Coaching, which is all about the framework and the structure and the relationships. But what this basically says is this, and we're going to use this as a very quick diagnostic tool. So if you've got a problem in your mind, perhaps think about a current circumstance. I'm going to ask you 7 or 8 questions around this, and you can just see what clues it gives you. Maybe even a little light bulb moment might occur here. Have you got absolute clarity? These are the 7 key principles about making a difference. We did a large, what we call a phenomenological study, where we studied the phenomena of about 4,000 people that made a difference. They achieved something. So we can use this as a development tool, as a coaching framework, as a planning framework, but we can also use it as a problem-solving framework. And what we're looking for is the clues here, the weaker principles or the missing links. So is there absolute clarity for yourself and other people, if it's in a team or a project, about what we're looking to achieve? Are you using the right goal defining technique? Now, there are 4 different types of goal defining technique that as managers and leaders we need in our toolkit, but very often we only get taught SMART goals. So are you using the right one? We'll touch on this in a couple of minutes' time. What about the reason why? This is all to do with motivation, desire. Have you or others got that strength of desire and motivation? Because you need both that and a level of self-belief, confidence. This is all the helpful and the hindering things we were talking about earlier. You know, what you're saying to yourself, what you're imagining. This is about your belief in your own ability to achieve what it is you're seeking to achieve. So this little internal triangle here, if you've ever watched my TED talk, my TEDx talk called The Art of Making a Difference, great video, only 17 minutes. Share it around, but you'll hear one of my favorite jokes in there, and that's about the Spice Girls. Because in 1996, 2 years before I did my research in 1998, the Spice Girls' big hit single came out, Wannabe. And they said, I'll tell you what I want. That's clearly defined goal. What I really, really want, that's a strong reason why. Now, they then spoilt it by going zigga zig. But here's the version for you, the Go Mad version. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Then I'll check my self-belief that it's achievable. And that forms a solid internal triangle. It's your heart's desire, the reason why, your head, the self-belief and confidence, and the thing that you've not yet shared with other people, your desired goal. So are any of those weaker and could be adjusted? What about possibilities? Now, once you've got the what and the why sorted, the how becomes a lot easier. So it might be that you need to do some possibility thinking. And there are 10 distinct areas that we found from the research that you could ask yourself questions around. And these are in the coaching cards here. So if I just look at these and we go to the hearts, we've got possible tasks, resources, reasons to involve others, communicate goals, etc., obstacles, risks, ways to overcome. To what extent have you thoroughly explored those, right, in order to move forward? Is it because you actually haven't sorted out your priorities or put time aside and planned in? Maybe you're not involving the right people and got their buy-in. Perhaps you or others are not taking personal responsibility and choosing maybe not to spend some time on the right things or involve the right people. So I hope this gives you some clues from a problem-solving perspective about those areas that you could just do a little bit of deep diving, maybe ask a few more questions about to help you move forward. Okay. There's a question come in from Andrew here. Let me just read this. One of our newly acquired sites has been carved out from a larger blue chip company. However, whenever they review new opportunities that they haven't done before, they are always really negative within their feedback and outlook and always say, no, we can't do that. How is this best tackled? Okay, I think it's best tackled by that, removing that negativity and feedback. Negativity and feedback will probably be in the form of statements, Andrew. If you can turn those to questions and give the questions back to the group and get them to do some thinking about that, the mind will go in search of better answers, right? That's my biggest tip. Turn negativity and statements into helpful, positive questions. Right, let's move on. So what difference do you want to make in 2022? We are nearly a quarter of the way through it. Differences for yourself, your team, your organization, maybe even the world. So here's a practical way to deal with some uncertainty within teams. And this is about clarity. It's going back to those goal defining techniques. Remember I said there was 4, okay? Which of these 4 is the best fit? SMART goals, great for measuring tasks, project outcomes, okay? What about umbrella goals? Umbrella goals are projects that is a breakdown, right, with chunks underneath. SMART goals could be underneath that. But above that is a vision. Martin Luther King, what did he say? I have a dream. He didn't say I had a SMART goal. Okay, so the 4th goal defining technique is qualitative goals. So this is to do with relationships, emotions, feelings, and quality of relationships. So let's have a quick look at some common goal defining mistakes that we find in organizations. And I've worked in about 350 different organizations around the world now, and these are very common. So which of these are you or your colleagues guilty of making? Okay, is it that they're too vague, not audible? Maybe lack of an exact calendar date, 2 or more goals in the same sentence. Maybe they include the why with the what, right? Goals should just focus on what you want to achieve. Sometimes goals are phrased according to what you don't want. A very common one is, I want to lose weight, right? It should always be in the affirmative of what you do want. Remember the Spice Girls? They didn't say, tell me what you don't want, okay? So sometimes people attempt to smart everything instead of using the right goal defining techniques. Sometimes they get the goal, but they don't check the self-belief and the reason why. So let's just see if there is a pattern here amongst the people with us today on this session of which of these are the most common goal defining mistakes that you or your colleagues are making. I'll just take a sip of water while we see what comes through. So please just enter it in chat. Andrew's come back to me saying yes. They are always in the form of negative statements. He will ask them to the questioning technique. Thanks, you're welcome. Glad we helped you on that one. So we've got four. The first 4 things that came through. Number 4, including too much in the goal there. Jess says number 5, what they don't want. Too vague, not audible. Or number 4 again, number 7. Okay, 4 and 7. Not time specific, says Janet. 6, 7, and 1. Okay, so 7s, 6s, and 1s are winning it at the moment. Okay, thanks for that. Let me just share with you very quickly 4 goal defining techniques here, in case you're not familiar with them. Over the course of this quarter, we will be planning some more webinar interactive sessions. I'm going to do one on a goal defining masterclass. These are the 4 goal defining techniques, okay? If you're interested in these cards, by the way, just put cards in the chat and Jade will sort out a link, and she'll also give you a discount code as well if you're interested in that. So SMART goals, he says, right? Mostly 9 out of 10 managers can tell me what SMART goal stands for, but they don't do them to the right standard. Then we've got, this is the vision. How do you do a vision? There's some tips on that. Qualitative goals, that's one that I developed. And again, you can find it in the coaching book. And if you get the pack of cards, it comes with a coaching book and also 4 videos to show you how to do that. So this is a best practice. Make sure that you're using the right goal defining technique. So what I've covered so far, we're halfway through the session. We've covered 2 frameworks. So if you've got any questions about these frameworks for me, please write them down into the question box and I'll do my best to answer them. I'm conscious that we're going through this very quickly and there's quite a lot more that I want to share with you. So I'm going to move on and we're going to look at this results framework. Okay, the results framework you can use as a coaching framework as well. So if ever you're stuck with something and you just want to identify what's the right question, let's quickly go through these. Start with the why and the what. Doesn't matter which, you can start with the why or the what, right? But what's my strongest reason? This is in comparison to everything else that we've got going on that we really want to do something about. What is it exactly that I'm looking to achieve? This is what results am I seeking? Let's get really clear, remembering there are 4 goal defining techniques. Then remember that triangle, let's check. How confident am I? Maybe use a 1 to 10 scale. I like to think of this as the self-belief seesaw. This is where you've got 10 out of 10 in belief, and this is where you've got 1 out of 10. Okay, self-belief versus self-doubt. This is about noticing the hindering thoughts in your head. Then we can do some possibility thinking together. We can say, okay, let's look at the possible risks, the possible obstacles, possible ways to overcome those. We could look at maybe assumptions that we've got, possible people we could involve, the reasons, how to get their buy-in, how to influence them and communicate what we want. We could look at key tasks and resources. They're the 10 possibility areas. Now, I've been doing this quite a few years, so I can rattle them off like that. But just imagine if all your people had those tools and they could also think of the most helpful question at the right time to help themselves and others. So once we've done that possibility thinking, then we can sort out the most important priorities in relation to our goal. Once we've done that, we can think very specifically about who those key stakeholders are definitely going to be, right? Sort out the possibilities into the definites. Then we think about how we can get their buy-in, right? This is what we call the buy-in line here, the influencing line. You're going to communicate what you want to them and influence them back. Then we can start to think, okay, what are the key tasks? And we can start to build an action plan of saying who's responsible for what. All of these first 6 key principles are about thinking and planning. But remember at the start, we looked at how we go from the thinking to the action to the results. So we measure results. That's the 7th key principle, right? And if we've got a clearly defined goal, we can measure the results against that, can't we? And we're either on track, in which case keep going, or we're off track. And that means we can come back to the center here and say, right, I've got some choices now. What do I need to do a bit more of? A bit more of involving others, a bit more possibility thinking, a bit more prioritizing and planning in time. Right? Maybe I need to build my self-belief. Right? Maybe I just need to park it because it's not as important now. So what do I do when I think to myself? This is a question I get asked. People ask me, so how do you do it, Andy? What do you do in your 1% thinking time? This is exactly what I do in my 1% thinking time. I block it in my diary and I do this multiple times a week. And sometimes I get the best person I can in my team to help me with my thinking that day, right? I think about what is the right question that I want to answer in that particular session. I get my notebook, get my pack of cards for inspiration, and then I answer the question. I might use the 20 answer technique. I might get creative with some mind mapping or something, but I devote a period of time to doing that. I always capture down my answers. right? If one good question stimulates more than 5 or 6, I've got to capture them down or else I'm not going to remember them, okay? And then I plan the next step in my diary to take action about the ideas and the decisions that I've made. So just imagine if everybody in your team was granted 1% thinking time. And when I coach and speak with directors, heads of department, and senior leaders, I always ask them, would you give your people 1% thinking time, 24 minutes a week, if they had the right questions and the right tools for thinking so that they could solve problems? And without a doubt, 100% always go, of course I would, right? In fact, I'd give them more than 1%. So think about if you could do that for your team, the difference that it might make for them and the team performance. So best practice number 5, develop everybody to think bigger, better, bolder. We've developed 3 to 4 hours of digital online learning, self-study, go at your own pace. And in fact, we're going to give at least one, if not several prizes of this today, okay? So what this means that everybody can learn and apply those Go.MAD key principles. It also talks about the thinking effectiveness framework in there, the helpful and hindering. And this is going to give you a common language for problem solving and achieving goals. But also there's another best practice hidden within it. Because what we've realized over the years is when you can get your team working on 30, 60 or 90-day Go.MAD challenges, that is a challenge to make a measurable difference that is worthwhile to the organization, wow, you start to introduce a continuous improvement cycles, right? So Go.MAD is used as a continuous improvement methodology in many organizations around the world, and it's based on 30, 60, 90-day cycles. And the program contains the templates of how to do that so that your team can do it and then you can support them as a manager. Right, let's get back to research. If you've got any questions on that, please put them in the questions box for me. Let's have a look at where we're going to next, the research findings, team productivity research. Before we went into lockdown, we did a year-long study and we took managers and team leaders for 6 months and we got them to train their teams in the Go.MAD methodology. And we studied which teams had successes and which teams didn't. So 19 teams in 15 different organizations. Okay. And this is what we discovered. Quite a lot of the teams, about half of them, had a really strong impact, but some of them didn't, and it was weaker. So what was it that made the difference? Well, the team leader was having a conversation with their senior manager. They were also having a conversation with an external coach provided by us. And they were also having conversations with the whole team and individuals within the team. This is the summary of that team productivity research. We found that the thing that makes the greatest difference for team productivity is purposeful and productive conversations. That's it. Where those conversations were either not happening or not purposeful or not productive, it affected productivity in the team. And from that, we identified 3 levels of conversation. The first is how we talk to ourselves in our head, right? The second is a one-to-one conversation, 2 people, that's a level 2. And a level 3 conversation is where there are 3 or more people involved in it. And the thing that makes the greatest difference in those conversations is the quality of the questions. The right question at the right time for the right person or the right group of people. Right, here's my favorite German word. Kopfkino. For the opportunity to win prizes, have a guess, or does anybody know what Kopfkino starts for? Okay, I'm looking, who's going to have a guess here? Ah, we've got it, Sandra and Gary as well. Head cinema, Kopf, okay, Kino, cinema. So what does this mean? It means that In our head, we see things. But I just love it, the fact that the Germans have a word for Kopfkino. You know, how is your Kopfkino today? Are you watching a horror movie in your mind, hindering thoughts? Or is it a helpful action movie or something? So I want to share with you what this means in terms of when we see things and have a movie going on in our heads. If we wanted to remove the waste in conversations to make it more productive, if you're familiar with lean methodology, this is the elimination of waste. And they commonly say there are 7 types of waste. There's actually an 8th. And the 8th type of waste is wasteful thinking. The thoughts that go on in your head. So if you wanted to go from A to B in a lean way, you would go like that in a straight line. But actually, what happens in most conversations when you analyze them, and we do a lot of analyzing of meetings, right? You find that they go all over the place. Instead of going from point A to point B, there's rubbish questions up here, recalled memories that aren't helping down here, imagining the worst is going to happen up here, making hindering statements down. You know what? Eventually, you might get to B. But look how much has been wasted there. So we developed ways, particularly during lockdown, where we would analyze meetings and study them. And we would study the impact of questions particularly. And in terms of Kopfkino, we would identify where people's head cinemas were having horror stories going through them. And we could plot which type of questions were helpful and hindering, that accelerated the conversation and decelerated it. Now, we haven't got time on this session today, but if you're interested in a meeting's effectiveness audit or discovering more, right, just put meetings audit in the chat and one of the team will get back to you to explain how you can conduct it, or if you want training on it or want us to do it. But the amount of time that is wasted by poor meetings, awful meetings, it's not surprising that one of our best practices out of the 25 is improve and remove meetings. And sometimes when we're working on organizational change programs, the way to get rid of problems is to improve meetings or remove them. So we might say, let us remove 1/3 of meetings throughout the whole organization. And then let's improve the remaining 2/3. Why? Well, to save time and money, to improve productivity in the teams that we've just been talking about. Maybe it's to create breakthroughs. We've all been in boring, tedious meetings, haven't we? Where the wrong thing is being asked. Well, we could make them more engaging. And critically, we can remove the waste. And sometimes that might be the whole meeting. Now, one of the common problems that organizations face is sometimes culturally. That might not be the whole culture. It might be siloed pockets of culture, subcultures. But one of the things that we do when we're looking at improving culture and culture change and improvement programs is we say, well, how do you actually improve them? And the answer is you get people asking better questions before the meeting, better questions during the meeting. And this is then when we can audit it and say, right, I can remember I was working at a hospital a few years ago, and I sat in and we had the executive team down one side and we had the functional team down another. There was 4 divisions within this hospital, and they came in at 90-minute intervals each every month to be lightly grilled on both sides by the executive team. And we would study, right, how many questions were high quality, how many questions were low quality, the different types of questions and the impact it had on the other side of the table here. So if you ask better questions, you're going to get better answers, better ideas, better decisions, better actions and results. And not only that, you're going to get better memories. People are going to leave that room going, wow, what a great meeting. Helpful statement about a helpful recalled memory. You get that going 2 or 3 times, and that becomes the way you do meetings around here. Okay, that's how culture gets formed. Right, a little bit more on research, going very quickly here. A little diagnostic. This is our third main framework that we use, particularly when we're working with leadership teams. And sometimes leadership teams have problems. So, what is leadership responsibility? How have you all got a shared alignment about what that means in your leadership team? Do you know what you're really responsible for? Are there any weak links? What about the clarity of vision and maybe purpose as well? Can you tell me exactly where we're going and why? Are we all on the same page? Would we all explain it together? Is there that alignment about where we're going and the reason why? What about the culture? Just touched on that. Is that helping or hindering the achievement of our vision? If it's hindering it, what's our responsibility as leaders? We have to look to improve the culture. How do you improve the culture? One meeting at a time, okay? Asking better questions. What about our managers? The possibility thinking, the prioritizing, the planning in time. That's a management function day to day. But the problem might be it's not being done in line with where we want to go, the vision, the key strategic objectives. But what about the people that involve others piece? What if we could get those people doing 30, 60, 90-day challenges, supported by the managers, having better level 1, level 2, level 3 meetings? Do we think the culture might change as we achieved 30, 60, 90-day goals in line with where we're going? More possibility thinking, greater clarity, more involvement of others? Yes, of course it would. So with our research findings, two things that we did. I shared with you the 50 areas. We know what the problem areas are that need fixing. But the other thing that we did was we identified over the last 25 years, what are the 25 best practices that have the greatest impact? And then what we did was, you'll see here, you know, a lot of the cards. On the other side of these cards, you'll see that there are 3 best practices out of the 25. Let me share one with you. This was a popular one. I knew it would be. Lack of clarity. So if you pick this card, lack of clarity, here, on the other side of it, there are 3 best practices, and we've covered these already, okay? Choose which of the 4 goal defining techniques is the best fit, because that's going to give you greater clarity, isn't it? Second one, have more purposeful and productive conversations. That's going to improve clarity. Third, design the right question for the right time and the right person, okay? That again is going to help you with clarity. So what we then did, or what I did, was the book that I've just written is a digital book, and I've put all of these 25 best practices in there. You can now go and look at that book online, watch a video about how to do that best practice, download a worksheet and start embedding it in your team. And this is what we call the TREK challenge, the Transform Results Enable Change. And this is a triple impact program over 12 months. And what we essentially do is say, right, every leader, 25 leaders. So this year we're working with 25 organizations, right, 25 leaders. And each of those leaders learns those 25 best practices. They're all proven to work, okay? They access the library of 2 to 7 minute videos that I've made, and then they know how to apply that. They have their pack of Catalyst cards here. They can use this for themselves. They can use it one-to-one. They can use it with their team. And then they start to become solution focused, because then they can equip all of their team with the information to think bigger, better and bolder. That's that self-managed learning program that I mentioned there. We've created a 12-step routeway for those leaders about how to embed this and measure the results. And then every month we have quarterly, every month we have monthly and then quarterly measurement reviews to measure the results. And we have an internal coach, one of the people within that team that spends time coaching the leaders, because we know that that works, right? And rather than use us as expensive consultants, we'll show you how to do that internally. And then we support them with monthly webinars on that. And that triple impact comes with a guarantee. So you get business improvement, some incredible measurable results. We only get paid on the results that we achieve. What about that? And then you get leadership development and coaching, and you get the team development and engagement there. So if you're interested in either being one of those organizations that we work with this year for looking at 25 team leaders, it doesn't have to be 25 team leaders. I was talking with somebody last week about it potentially being 800 team leaders in one organization. But if you wanted to try it with 25, you could even do it with one team on that, but it's more cost effective to do it with 25. Just put Trek into the chat box and we'll send you some information about that. Okay, so where are we? Let's do a recap, and then we're going to go into some more questions and answers. Then we're going to go into the prizes. So remember we said that thinking, and we said there were 4 components for thinking, helpful or hindering, okay? And we've given you a framework to think around as well, the results framework, 7 key principles. And by thinking around those 7 key principles, we can start to have better quality actions, better quality questions. We've identified that those conversations for yourself, one-to-one, and groups of 3 or more can be improved. And we then start to have better actions that turn into better results, thinking, action, results. Those 25 best practices are going to help you accelerate the results, transform the results, and enable change to happen faster and easier. In the middle of that, from an organizational perspective, if we start to glue those teams together, the Trek program, imagine you've got an average of, say, 8 people for every team leader, and there's 25 teams. That's actually a ripple effect of 200 people, each making a difference every 30, 60, and 90 days. Shared language to solve problems together. That's going to cause a massive change. Okay, so that's the summary of what I really wanted to cover with you today. What questions have you got for me about anything that I've covered? Meetings, Trek programs, thinking effectiveness, results framework, asking better questions. Please ask them to me now. I'm going to share with you the prizes that we're about to give away. And our top prize is going to be 4 days, our flagship training program with me at our headquarters in Leicestershire in the UK. I know we've got some international people on today. We do run this program as a virtual program as well, over 90 days. And if you win, we'll make sure you get that instead. But this is basically all of these books that I mentioned to you, we go into and we really equip you with the skills to think in a solution-focused way. Been running that program for 20 years and it's our most popular program. And one of you will win that. So next one we're going to go for is Stretch. This is the Thinking Bigger, Better, Bolder. This is given to everybody in teams. So 3 to 4 hours of great learning, and at least one person will win that. So what we need to do is pick a number. I think we've got about 80 or so people on today. So can you please in the chat box put a number between 1 and 40? And whatever the first number is that I see, that person will win. Number 36. So Jade, I think it was number 36. I'm scrolling back. Ramona put number 36 in and think she was the first. No, Sharon it was, put that in. 36, whoever's person number 36, they're going to win a prize. Get ready, fingers ready. Please put a number in between number 41 and 80. 41, 42 was the first one I saw there. Okay, thank you for that. That was Abby. Okay, so number 42 as well. Jade will check that and she'll get us in 2 minutes about the questions, the winners. Meanwhile, this is your opportunity to design the right question for the right person. That's me at the right time. That is now. I'm not saying that I'm Einstein, right? And I might not be able to answer any question, but what questions do you have about absolutely anything going through your mind? We'll do 2 or 3 minutes of questions, and then we'll do that. So first questions come in. When does the Trek program start? Well, it's actually not a program, it's a 12-month challenge, and it can start at any time from now until the end of the year. We've actually got a couple starting in April with clients, because this isn't a public program. It's 25 organizations, 25 teams from the same organization. It can start at any time, okay? What that means for me is, if I get 25 organizations with 25 leaders, that gives 625 teams for me to study and analyze as well. So next year, my book will be about 50 team leaders that have made a difference as a result of the Trek challenge, how they've transformed results. So if you enter, 2 of your team leaders will be nominated, and that will be phenomenal. Okay. Andrew says, my superiors would belittle my request for them to define a meeting agenda. How do you best overcome this? Wow. Well, I'll tell you what I do is I just ask people, what's the purpose of the meeting? What preparation would you like me to do before? What's the question you would most like me to think about in advance of that meeting? You could put that. But when you're running meetings, you could put questions on the agenda, inspire people. They go away thinking, wow, what a brilliant meeting that you've run. How to transform bad recall situations into productive questions. Okay, if you've got a situation that in your memory is traumatic, and I sometimes work with people with post-traumatic stress disorder, go back to the time and just say, what's the most helpful thing that I could learn from that situation? Okay, and normally if you ask that question, even if it's a hindering memory, you can have a helpful learning going forward. I hope that helps. Jess, how important is it to have ongoing conversations, coaching, supervision to properly embed the skills? Yeah, I think it is important, because sometimes we become unconsciously incompetent about the questions. So having some supervision, if you're doing coaching, can be a really great thing, or just feedback and observation. And this is why we do the meetings effectiveness audit, where we can actually feed back to leaders about the quality of their questions. Debbie, have you a tip on how to get the team to realize those 24 minutes are really important and to lift them out of the day-to-day? Yes. Just share with them some things that they can do. Get them a pack of cards, show them how to use the 20 answer technique there. You block out the diary in your diary first and be the role model. Okay, one more question, and then we're going to go to Jade. Have we got the winners? Yes, we have. Right, Jade, please can you tell me who the winners are today? The winner of the 4-day solution-focused thinking program is Viv Lawrence from Solihull, MBC. I'm guessing that that's Metropolitan Borough Council. Viv, you're a winner. Great. I look forward to seeing you on a program. And that the winner of the Stretch Digital course is John Hardy from Top Cashback. John, we will get you one of those 3 to 4 hours. You can study that yourself, and I hope that's really great for you. Okay, we are now at the end. I'm going to stay on for an extra 3 or 4 minutes, just in case anybody wants to ask me some more questions. There's a couple more come in. I will answer them. But if you've got any feedback for me, please put feedback in on today's webinar so that I can improve, go forward. If you've got any requests for anything, whether it be the Trek, the meetings effectiveness audit, the cards, please put the requests in. Jade will send you something out after the webinar. Just a nice little thing. This is actually on my stairs as I walk upstairs to my office. Some people want it to happen. Some wish it would happen. Others make it happen. So what are you going to do as a result of today's session? Finally, a gift for everybody that didn't receive one of those prizes. This is it. If you go to the App Store, Google app, just download Thinking for Good. It is a free app. There is no in-house purchases. We developed this for the NHS during the peak of the pandemic. And on there, it's got loads of great questions. It's got video resource library for you. It's even got a coaching session. Where is it? Coach Me on there for 25 minutes from me. That's my gift for you. Okay. So let's see what questions. Do I have any specific tips for remote Zoom meetings? Oh, Caroline, we could be here all day on that. Yes. My biggest tip is tell people the purpose of the meeting and what they would need to do to make it most productive. That might be about answering a question before or during the meeting there. And I think the other thing about Zoom meetings is make it interactive as much as you can do, just like we've done today, even if it's only posting in the chat box to do that. I hope that helps. Debbie, thank you. That's great. Will we get a recording after this session? Yes, we'll send you a recording on that. Thank you very much. Great gift. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you as well, Maya, for being here. Janet, great. Thank you. We've still got over 30 people here. Does anybody want to ask me one question? I've gone through everything here. One final question if you want it. I will do that. Otherwise, I'm going to wish you well and say have a great afternoon. I'm going to give 10 seconds. Any more feedback? Great session. Thank you very much. We will be running 2 more sessions in April, another 2 in May, another 2 in June. We normally run a Thinking Bigger, Better, Bolder introductory session for people that are new to the Go-Mad methodology. We run that once a month, then we pick a new session. We'll be doing some work on change in a couple of months' time. Just stay in touch with us. Have a look at the website under the events page, and we'll always put the new webinars up there. And if you're on our mailing list, we'll mail out to you as well. Okay, that's fab. Thank you very much. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. As my mother always taught me to say, thank you for having me. And my father always taught me to say, go forth and make a difference. Take care, stay safe. Cheers.